Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcasting agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. And today I have a wonderful, bubbly, great guest for you all, Kiara Hancock. I actually heard her speak at a networking event I went to recently here in Seattle, and Kiara is Tacoma-based. And she was one of the keynote speakers, and I was absolutely obsessed with her energy, her story, and just her point of view on life. And so I invited her onto the podcast to share her story with all of you, which is just absolutely an amazing story. And in this episode, we really talk about how she lives her brand every single day, how she's carved her space out in the wedding industry. We talk about being authentic, and we also talk about getting noticed and being featured in this industry, which all comes with trust and growing your brand. But she's been on TV and has talked to amazing people and put on some incredible weddings. Kiara also has a full-time job along with running this business, which I ask her so many questions about that because that really does show how she's able to multitask but also balance her priorities. And I think it's a big lesson for a lot of entrepreneurs that they can still show up looking like they're working full-time even if they are working still in corporate, and it's a great way to make that transition. So she talks all about how she does that. But I am so excited for you to listen to this episode. It's full of so many actionable tips, and she is just such a great resource. So all of her links will be in the show notes. Be sure you check out her beautiful website as well. And if you're getting married in the Seattle, Tacoma surrounding areas, she also travels. Be sure to reach out to her. She is just an amazing creative person. So let's get right into this episode. Hey Kiara, thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast. I am so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I'm really excited and hopeful that I can give some really good advice and help. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah. Oh, I know you will be able to. I heard we connected at a networking event and you were a keynote speaker. Mm-hmm. And I just felt so motivated by everything you were saying. Your energy is amazing. And so I was like, you need to get on the podcast so you can speak to my audience and really make them feel how you made me feel, because it was amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I really love divvying out whatever I can and giving advice where I can. I feel like none of us really gets where we are alone. So it's important to remember that all the time.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. So if you wanted to start off by telling us a little bit about who you are and your journey from employee to boss, sure. I would love to hear that story.
Yeah, so I own a wedding planning design and floral design business in the Seattle area. I work everywhere, but I'm based in Tacoma, Seattle area, so I do a lot of work there. I've owned it for about 8 years now, and it really came to fruition by accident, which I love so much. Sometimes we fall into really good favor in the world, I feel like, and this is one of those situations. But I've been on reality TV on a competition called Full Bloom on HBO Max. I've had the opportunity to be featured in Vogue with one of my weddings, as well as named as the Knots one of their top people to watch in the industry. So it's really brought me a lot of good.
I always say my business kind of started the same way, by accident, where I never intended to have a business, and then one thing led to the next and just kept getting more clients. And so I totally agree. It's just the universe is so good to us. We just have to take advantage of it while we can. Yeah. So I really am curious, during this networking event, you were saying how your business really started because you put on your own wedding, and then you're like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
And so was that really the starting point of your business?
Yeah, it really was. People who plan weddings, it's like a whole journey that you go on to get that wedding going.
Yeah.
And it's either something that you really like and can embrace, or something that you hate. And I embraced it. I have always worked as an executive assistant. So it's really something, the planning part is really something that comes naturally to me. All the logistics come naturally to me, the looking around corners to make sure things were going okay. It was just something that I already know how to do. And so then I realized, hey, you know what? I can do that for other people who don't enjoy this process as much, and the rest is literally history. Like I planned my wedding and I was like, I can do this, and then I did it.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And I always say a lot of us were our very first clients. And so,
Yeah.
like, for me, like I started a podcast, now I do it for other people. You had your own wedding, now you do it for other people. And really having that baseline of like, oh, I can totally do this for myself, I can do this for others is, maybe one of those first confident
Yeah, I
boosters
was just
that
gonna say
we
it's
need.
confidence building, right? Like you've
Mhm.
done it. You just need to apply the things that you did for yourself to a client, which is, it feels like less of a big step when you do it that way.
Yeah, because I feel like you also have less of an emotional attachment to it. Of
Oh
course, you
yeah.
wanna give them the best results possible. You want to, like, make them feel that wow moment that maybe
Right.
you felt at your wedding, but it's not, like, so much at stake, I
Totally. And
feel.
that's the best. I always think of that because it's the best because you are able to help your clients make decisions that are not based in emotion and be a little bit more of an objective sounding board for them, I suppose, as opposed to like their
Yeah.
friends and family who love them and they want them to succeed. And sometimes their advice is clouded by that love. You can still be kind and love your clients, but you're able to like really be a realist with them. And that is who I am to a T.
Yeah, I love that because I think that a lot of us I mean, I'm not married,
Yeah.
but I remember being back in, like, elementary school and being on Pinterest and like, "Ooh, I want all of this at my wedding." And so
Right.
there's so much that you can go with, and so it is nice to have you, the expert, kinda point you in the direction of really, like, what makes sense, what
It
doesn't.
does. And you really have to like for me, I have to really look for clients who are into that because some people
Mhm.
want to have it their way and they're not really open to feedback and suggestions, and that's really not how I work. I need to be able to be like a really good sounding board. You don't have to always take my advice, but I need you to like listen to it and kind of respect it, and then we can talk about whether it's good for you or not together.
Yeah. So there's no mystery in like the wedding industry is very busy. Like it's very
Mm-hmm.
saturated, but at the same time there are lots of people getting married, so there's enough clients to go around. But in such like a busy saturated niche, I would love to hear how you started growing your authority and getting those clients that you were just mentioning that you love working with.
Right. It's so hard. I think when you first start any business, like you look at other people to kind of like mock and follow what they do. And that's natural. There's nothing wrong with that. You're first starting out and you're trying to find your own footing. So we all do that, but it's kind of a trap because what I find is that the best part about my business is me. Like, I'm the center of my
Mhm.
business. There's only one me. There's no one like me. So yes, in the beginning, we look to other people and we like see what they're doing and kind of follow their plan a little bit. But eventually, hopefully eventually, you kind of figure out that, this isn't my style and I need to infuse myself into it. People use authenticity all the time. I talk about this all the time. I love that word, right? But it also makes me hate it
Yeah.
because so many people use it and it feels like the opposite of authenticity sometimes. But yeah, if you like lean into who you are and infuse that in your business, you're like millions of miles in front of everyone. People can always sense real, I feel like. They can understand when you're like being genuine and honest and really who you are. And whether they like it or not, they can like sense that. But you're going to attract like your ideal clients or ideal partnerships by being yourself. They're going to be attracted to you. And this is really the secret sauce behind the growth of my business is that I am really true to myself. Like I don't care if you like it, I don't care if you hate it. I'm indifferent. This is who I am every day and I bring that to my business every day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, and like you just mentioned, this is a point I hadn't really thought of before. In the wedding industry, it is very collaborative, so you do
Mhm.
have to have those partnerships. Can you tell us a little bit more about partnerships in business?
Yeah, they're scary sometimes, aren't they? Like,
Yeah.
because that's the first thing I will say is that they're kind of terrifying. But really, when I think about partnerships with people, I like think about people that I'm attracted to. Like if I'm looking at Instagram and I see someone really cool, I'm like, oh my gosh, such a good vibe. I'm really attracted to them. And I'll reach out to them and see if that is really like who they are. And if we vibe well together, to me, that's the very first step of a partnership. I feel like people will look at follower count and other things to be like, I want to reach their audience. Well, guess what? Their audience isn't always for you. Like it's not, might not be who connects with you best. So if you like lean into like the people that you like and you admire and like put all the other things to the side, like follower account and what they can do for you, it's really about what you can do for each other. And if the energy is good in partnerships, like you're way ahead of the game and you're going to be able to really make it more fruitful. I find that in partnerships, you need to be like very vocal and very forward in a kind way about what you want out of it and what you will and you won't do. Communication is key in the beginning of partnerships so that everybody knows the lay of the land, everybody knows their roles, and everybody knows what lanes they're going to be in. So really communicate clearly with anybody you want to partner with. Tell them exactly what you want to do. And if they're like coming at you with something different, be like, oh no, that's what, redirect. Like be sure that you're clear on what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. In my business, pretty much the partnerships I do are podcast collaborations or just
Oh
directly
yeah.
with my clients. And so it's not so much, you know, putting together like a actual product or
Mm-hmm.
like making something happen. It's all virtual. And so that is such good advice just for like the baseline of partnerships, like what to be aware of, making those outlines and really ignoring those vanity metrics
Right.
because that's what they are, vanity
They're so
metrics.
vanity. And we all know, I hope we all know by like this point, that your follower count does not necessarily convert into like how well your business is doing. We get intimidated, I think, by like how many followers someone has and be like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. And how did they do that? That is like completely the wrong focus. And we don't know if that is translating into good things for them or not. So it's best just to like keep doing you and keep rolling forward.
Yeah, because you can have 100,000 followers and make $200 in your business, right?
Right. That's
Or you
exactly
can
it.
have like 2,000 followers and have a six-figure business. Like it
Right.
truly,
It
there's no
means nothing.
correlation.
It feels good. It's like it's something that speaks to our egos
Yeah.
and that's big in this world. So it feels good, but it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah, yeah, that's great to put out there and super important to remember, especially when you're early in
Oh
business,
my
you kind
gosh.
of want to grow your followers and that's like your main
Feels
priority.
like
But
life or death,
I know
doesn't
people,
it? Feels like life or death
right,
in those early
right.
moments.
Yeah, I also hear people that are like embarrassed of their follower count. They're like, "Oh, I only have like 200 followers right now." And I'm like, "You
Oh my
just
gosh.
started.
Well,
Just like give it a
listen,
chance."
I could have 5 followers, but if they were like my people and like truly love what I do,
Mhm.
I would feel freaking great because those are the people that like it's just nice to know that these people, no matter how many, are the people who like connect with me and what I'm doing
Yeah.
specifically.
Totally. And beyond just like those vanity metrics, I think being trusted is really what you're talking about.
Hmm.
Just like really being trusted by your followers and having them notice you for different reasons than, oh, she just got, another follower or,
Yeah.
oh, she just posted another reel, right? You really
Absolutely.
want to turn them into clients and be trusted by them.
Not even like turn them into client, but turn them into like, because some people who follow me are already married, but turn them into like your advocates and
Mm.
people who like will like mention your name when someone they know is getting married.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And, you've been featured on HBO Max and those other places you were talking about in the beginning. What were the steps you took to really getting noticed by the right people and making those connections?
Right. Oh, that's a great question. I think that people are attracted to my personality, but I think it's like I mentioned before, I think it's because I'm like not afraid to put anything out there. I use my Instagram a lot of the time, like a daily diary in my stories. It kind of feels like, I was just thinking this the other day. It's like I invite people into my life. And so they think they become a part of my life, which they do. Like these are like my friends now. They become a part of my life. They're like going to drop off my kids with me or pick them up and walk the dog, and we're having a chat. So I really use that power of connection with people, which is very important to me in general anyway. But I use that power of connection to draw people in and for them to want to get to know me even more.
Oh my gosh, the power of connection. That's such a good way to describe it. Have you always been, bubbly and have a big personality and really like make people feel warm? Or is this something that during business you've really learned to build?
I feel like it's so funny. I feel like I've always been this way. I feel like I am the person in my friend group, and there's a lot of people like this, that people always reach out to, like when they want the real deal, like feedback. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And but
The
not
real
even
advice.
exactly, and not even that, but reach out to someone who will give you the feedback that you need in a really like kind but straightforward and positive way. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not beating around the bush with you. I'm not going to yes you to death and tell you what you want to hear, but I'm not going to be mean to you because I love you. You're my friend and I want you to succeed, but I want to tell you exactly what I see and what I notice. And that is exactly who I am in my business, right? I'm like an advisor
Yeah.
to my clients. And I've worked with people who it hasn't been the best with. And it's just because they aren't used to someone, who's like, hey, that's not going to work, but this will. So let's do that. But, I want to be that trusted advisor with my clients. And I feel like I gain that trust by being very honest and candid with them.
Yeah. So, who was the first person you worked with? Like, what
Oh
was that
gosh.
experience like?
I can't even remember. Isn't that weird? I feel like it was like I have a lot of great friends who have always rooted for me to succeed. And so in my early days of my business, a lot of my clients were through my friends, like who had friends who were getting married
Mm.
and who would mention me. That was a lot of my early clientele, friends of friends. I did a lot of friend of friend weddings. And they were fun. Like they were like giving me what I needed to like the experience under my belt and a little bit money for my business and that sort of thing. They weren't always like the best connection. But
Yeah.
when you're early in the process, there is something to be said about just the doing of the thing to like get to
Yeah.
know what does and doesn't work.
Yeah. Was there like a pivotal shifting point that you noticed when you started doing like your ideal client weddings? Like, was there a
Yeah.
moment where it kind of shifted from friends of friends to people that you didn't quite know reaching out to you and they were like, I love your work. Let's work
Yeah.
together.
It took a couple of years, but it was like I spent those years getting to know myself and like my own personal style in my business.
Mhm.
And then what I did next was I translated that into a brand. And I have a really great brand. I have a wonderful woman who completed it all for me, and she does cosmic branding, which is amazing, like because I'm into that woo-woo stuff. So she looks at my human design
Yeah.
chart, but she like made it
Oh, cool.
specifically based on who I am as a person. And it's not only is it beautiful, but she walked me through like who I am and who the people that I connect well with. And it was like dead on. So once I got that good brand and like understanding who I want to attract, I was able to filter like, is what I'm doing right now actually attracting those people? And the answer was no. So I started to
Mm.
do more things like be myself, be bubbly, be funny, be entertaining. I started to like be more of that person to draw people in, be artistic and not be the same as everybody else and fall into those traps and tricks. And once I started to do that and like live my brand, which is funny because I am my brand, I'm at the center. So it's just me being myself. Once I started doing that, the switch was almost automatic, I feel like. I feel like people started wanting to work with me and coming into my life and interacting with me in my stories and my DMs in different ways, like in the way that I wanted them to. And that just, it was like a waterfall from there.
That's amazing. And I was looking at your website.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Thank
It's very
you.
activating.
Yeah.
One of the points that I remember on it was like think big, no bigger, or
Yeah.
something along those lines. And that definitely speaks to the bride that you want, right? That speaks
Right.
to the bride who's going to think big. And just from that, I basically know exactly what type of weddings you work with, just literally from those 4 words.
Yeah, I think that people sometimes other wedding planners will, kind of squash your great dreams and like make it less about you and more about them and their experience and what they've done before. I really try to avoid
Mhm.
that. This is not about me at all. It's about you as individuals and you as a couple and all the things you like. And I'm here to support you in getting there and like creating ideas specifically for you. Not ideas are like, oh, I worked at this venue and this worked before. No, that we just
Yeah.
throw all that out. I want something that works for you. So I really get to know people. I tell them all the time it's like being in a relationship. It very much is. We're in a relationship together, all three of us all together. So, yeah, that's what I do. And I love that so much. And I will run into clients sometimes, especially early on, to be like, hey, have you ever worked at this venue before? Or have you ever worked with this person before? And they're looking to like see like if you have familiarity, right? But
Yeah.
I am going to tell you guys right now that not having worked at those venues, and I told this to them too, not having worked at those venues and seeing those things was my superpower because I was able to look at things in a way that were brand new, not some recycled ideas. So being new to something is not necessarily a drawback. You need to lean into how much that actually is your superpower and how much you can like differentiate.
Oh, I love that. And this is so funny. I was watching this training video
Yeah.
from my coach last night, and it was something about like you should know who your 5 competitors are.
Right.
And I was like, I really don't know
No.
who my 5 competitors are. I'm like, I don't really like I am just who I am. I attract the
Right. I
clients
love
that
that.
I attract. And so it's like it is very interesting to think like that. Like, yes, I see things from new ways. And if I think if I was looking at my competitors and what they're doing,
Right.
subconsciously you do start to copy them, right? Subconsciously you're
Right.
comparing yourself to them.
Oh,
And
the
so
comparing is
I love that.
nonstop. Like I try not to do that.
Mhm.
I've done that. Obviously, we all have. The comparing is
Oh, yeah.
nonstop, but it doesn't serve you in the long run. It doesn't help you facilitate new ideas because you're like constantly
Mhm.
absorbing other people's ideas.
Yeah. So I love that. I mean, be confident enough to do new things and try new things. And
Yeah.
it is a superpower to see things from new angles that no one else has done before. I love that.
Yeah, it's so big. And it's like, I mean, literally used to say that in my consultations. Like, that's my superpower. I'm not doing it the same as
Yeah.
everybody else. I'm going to do it for you.
Tell us a little bit more about living your brand. And I think
Yeah.
that to me, I live my brand, but I'm also not showing my face and like sharing my story as much as you do. So I would
Yeah.
love to learn from you. Like, how do you live your brand every day?
Right. Every day. Like, I feel like my brand is very like trustworthy. I feel like it's very open and
Mhm.
honest is a big part of my brand. I think it's very confident and like filled. So I share those moments of my life. Anything that I'm doing every day, I will share something in my life that does that. But like for example, like I'm a mom and like people will connect with that in weird ways. So I will share my
Mhm.
journeys of being a mom, whether it's like, oh my gosh, my kids got, it's not all about flowers, whether my kids got sick and we can connect in that way, or what's going on at school, or why I'm too busy and why I'm stressed and what I'm doing and all those things. I am open and honest in every way, whether it's controversial or not, in all honesty. And in these times, a lot of things can be controversial, right? Like people don't want to talk about politics or they don't want to like take a stand. And I feel like the exact opposite in all honesty. And it's scary
Yeah.
sometimes, but this is how you build your community on your Instagram. Like I know that everybody that follows me, like we are in a community and we're feeling these same things together and we want to make things better and this is what we believe. So I feel safe on my page to be able to show my face all the time and talk about the things that I want to talk about.
Yeah, because you know the audience you have agrees with
Right.
you, or
And
at
if
least
they
doesn't
don't, they'll leave, right?
disagree. Right. Right, right. They either probably feel neutral about it or they really
Yeah,
agree, and
and
that's
what
really
if
the
you don't?
best
I want you to
to
leave. It's
have.
not even that you should leave. I
Yeah,
want you to leave. Like, this is not your space.
yeah, 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 and that's so empowering for you to be able to just post what you want, when you want, share your truth,
Yeah.
and I think that I always say it's best, especially in the podcast industry, that's where I'm at all day. It's best to niche down as much as possible because
Mm-hmm.
then you can find the people who want to listen to you. So if you want to talk about, 1 million topics, you're going to attract all different people.
It's
And
too
it's the same with
much.
social media, right? It's like you don't want to talk to everyone. You really want to narrow it down and talk to the people that want to hear from you.
Exactly. And who will like then be like, hey, I found this person who's really cool. You're getting married.
Yeah.
You have similar values. You should look them up. It's one of the best. It's not a
Yeah.
marketing tool because I don't look at it that way, but it does help.
Yeah, it's you growing your brand. It
Mm-hmm.
is, marketing in a way, but like subconscious marketing.
Yeah.
It's really just
You don't even
connecting,
have,
the
it's a
power of
no
connecting.
brainer marketing, right? You're just doing you.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So, one of the things that really shocked me about you and your brand,
Mhm.
because it seems like you do your business,
A lot.
as your full-time
Yeah.
job, but you actually balance a job
I
with this job.
know.
So I would
I'm
love to hear
nuts.
more about that. That's crazy, but also amazing.
It is. Yeah, I work full time, which I think some people think is bonkers because I'm like kids, husband, full time job, business. It's all the whole thing. But I
Mhm.
have been like an executive assistant, like I mentioned, for 20 years. And I've worked at some really great companies. And I work at Slack right now, which I really love. And I'm able to use in my business too.
Cool.
But for me, having a full time job is a couple of things. Like, I'm good at it. I'm good at the wedding stuff and I'm good at what I do in real life. And I feel like I can do both. And I want to be good at both. I don't want to give one up. Might I have to give one up eventually? Maybe, but we're not there yet. So it's working well. But also, it gives me the kind of like the space in my business to be able to grow and try different things and not have that fear of like it not working out. Like, business is scary sometimes, and don't have to worry about like my health insurance and all the other things. I can really focus on being as wild and crazy and out there and forward in my business as I want to without being like, well, what if this fails? It can fail for me. Like, it can fail for me. And it would be different, but it would be okay. And so having a job really opens up my creativity in a lot of ways because I don't have to play by the books. I don't have to do it any particular way. I can experiment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can also say yes and no to people, I'm
Oh,
sure, in your
yeah, it
own
makes
business.
yes and no so much more black and white.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because I can be like, I don't need to partner with this person for this small amount of money that and this big amount of time that it will take me. I don't have to do that. I mean, I can say no, that the time that I'm going to invest is not worth what I'm going to get in the end, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And that in itself can be seen as freedom, right? A lot of people want to start their business for freedom, but then you end up saying yes to everyone. I did this in the
Oh
beginning,
gosh,
right?
it's
I said
hard.
yes to everyone who wanted to work with me. But with you being able to say yes and no, you absolutely have the freedom to say yes and no to people,
Yeah,
which I think is so cool.
and it's such an important part of the process. I recently said no to someone who wanted to like collaborate on sponsored content, and it was like the amount of time
Mhm.
that it would take me to do it for like basically pennies. I was like, no, doesn't work for me.
Like, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
so good.
good.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, a lot of the listeners might be in that phase
Mhm.
where they are working both. They're trying to grow their business
Yeah,
while working full
it's
time.
hard.
Was this easy in the beginning or was this
Mm-mm.
hard or what was it
It's
like?
still hard sometimes. It's not even that in the
Yeah.
beginning. It's still hard sometimes. But I think we have this vision that the world has given us of like balance. And one day I'm going to achieve balance and everything is going to be in balance. That, excuse my French, is bullshit. That's just not how life happens,
Yeah,
right? There's
right.
so many things that for life and business and your personal life to be perfectly in balance, like that would be a feat in and of itself. So I don't focus on that. Nothing's in balance. I focus on watering what needs to be watered when it needs to be watered, right? So I don't know what that's going to be in any day. And in some ways that makes life exciting, right? But it's just
Wasn't
like,
it?
you're not going to
Yeah.
ever be in balance. Do what you need to do. Find the time to do it. If you really love doing it, you're going to find the time and you're going to make a way. Like, I'm often up very early. I'm a morning person anyway, but sometimes I'm up very early when it's quiet and I can like plow through some things by myself. And that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard this phrase a while back and it's reminding me of this
Mm-hmm.
conversation right now of choose your hard, right? It's hard to do
Yeah.
one thing, but it can also be hard to do another. It can be hard to dream about starting a business and never doing
Mm-hmm.
it, or it could be hard to balance a full-time job and
Yeah.
growing your
That's
dream and
exactly
passion.
it. That's a great phrase. Yes, choose your heart. I'm going to remind my husband of this
Mhm.
sometimes when he's like, you are overextended. I am not.
Yeah. You're like, "I could be something else, it could
Yeah.
be," but if it's making you feel good,
Right. It's
then
so
that should be what you
important.
follow.
And like I
Yeah.
mentioned, I have kids and it's important for them to see me like do the things that I'm doing and like chase my dreams and see how hard I have to work to do that and not that someone just handed it to me. They get to see the good, the
Mhm.
bad, the ugly, all of it all together. And that's important for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in business, you might be working long hours in the beginning really to grow your brand and,
Hmm.
like you were saying earlier, be trusted, and then one day it starts working for itself and it
Right.
becomes less hard, so then you get to be more creative and try new things, so I absolutely love that, and do you have any last tips for entrepreneurs who are trying to balance both full-time work and entrepreneurship?
Oh, I really want you to be kind to yourself because
Mm,
no, I mean, it's hard and it's not perfect. And sometimes it feels like you're failing at multiple things on any given day. Be kind to yourself. It always like rejiggers and figures itself back out. Things are going to be okay. Be kind to yourself. Don't panic. Push through, show a little bit of grit, and get to the other side.
I love that. That is such great advice. I've loved everything we've talked about in this conversation. Is there, before we get into your action steps
Mhm.
for the listeners, is there anything else that you want to share?
Oh my gosh. There's so much I want to share in life. That's such a broad question that, of course, my mind just immediately boggles. But, what comes to mind right now is that I'm getting ready to relaunch like a mentoring program for my business for people who want to start their floral business and that sort of thing.
Mm,
And I've
amazing.
done it before. But the thing that I find that people always run into when I'm doing this or they hit a wall at is that they want the perfect plan and they want everything planned out and they want the business plan and I got the tax thing figured out. I have everything figured out and then I'll be ready to like jump in. It's akin to having children. There's never a perfect time. I think a lot of the learning about your business and starting a business comes from the jumping in, like leaping in on faith and figuring things out can teach you so much more, so much more quickly, like about what you do and don't want to do. So don't wait for the perfect moment to have the perfect plan and everything out. Yes, you want to have a general guideline, but everything being perfect is not going to happen. Jump in on faith and start to figure it out.
Thank you so much for sharing
Of
that.
course.
So, Kiara, this is how I start to wrap up every episode. I would love it if you could share 3 action steps for the audience to take to move forward in their life or business this week.
Right, absolutely. I always say that I do something for my business every day, but something that I would do if I was starting out is to find someone on Instagram or wherever that I really look up to and just reach out to them and say hi and introduce yourself and like talk
Mm,
about your dream out loud with them and ask them if you could help them in any way because that also helps you. That's how I got started a lot of the time too, is like asking people, freelancing, I wasn't ready, but reach out to people or reach out to someone that you really admire and start a conversation. Might not go your way, but it just could. Another thing I would look at is, I like to learn. So I would sign up for a workshop on something that I really want to start my business with, or like I'm really interested in. And for me, that might be like a bouquet workshop or something. Take the time to invest in yourself. It doesn't have to be a lot, whether you're just investing time and you're finding it on YouTube and it's free. Take the time, an hour, 30 minutes every day this week to really invest in your learning.
I love that.
And then I think the third thing that I would tell people to do is to get together with someone who knows you, someone who cares for you. And that can often feel lonely, but that person can be yourself, in all honesty. If it's you, that's fine. Take yourself to dinner, go have a drink with yourself, and really talk about your dream out loud. Like, it feels so good when you're with someone who knows you, knows your heart, knows your ability to talk to them about it out loud and get their honest feedback. A lot of the times they're going to cheer you on. And at this stage, that is what you need. They can also give you some new ideas that you haven't thought about for your business. That's the beauty of not being the same as people, is that we think about things in different ways. But also, it's just another way to put what you want out into the universe.
That's great, because it is nice to talk things through with other people. And even if it is yourself, writing it down, having that conversation with yourself is so important.
Yes.
Because I think it's one thing to think it, and then it's another thing to hear it or see it. So
it totally
that is great advice. All of those really are amazing and have to do with just growing your community and building your trust in yourself and taking that action. So I really appreciate all of those.
Of course. That was fun.
Yeah. So where can people connect with you?
Sure. Instagram is the best way to connect with me. And my Instagram handle is Hancock. Hancock. That's it. Come say hi. Slide into my DMs. People do all the time. It might take me a minute, but I'll say hi back to you. Don't worry.
Awesome. I will put that in the show notes. And Kiara, I really appreciate you speaking with me today on the podcast and sharing a lot of great tips and inspiration for all the listeners.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. Hopefully someone gleaned something great out of it.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.